It is officially confirmed. So guys, President Biden, so we all know that stimulus checks have to be sent out. With inflation rising, the cost of food, gas, and groceries increasing every single day, the rising price in rent and home prices, we all see that President Biden has to do something about this and send out the fourth stimulus check of either $1,400 or $2,000 by the end of this year. If you guys agree that President Biden needs to send out the fourth stimulus check before the end of the year, then be sure to continue watching this video because I'm covering the most important stimulus check information, from when we might expect this check, from where the stimulus is at, from where the current talks are at, who in Congress wants a fourth stimulus check, and when exactly we'll see the fourth stimulus payment in our bank accounts. I would really appreciate if you guys could watch this entire video because I'm covering the most important stimulus check information. I'm on your guys' side here, and I want President Biden to send the stimulus checks out, and I want President Biden to send that stimulus as soon as possible. And to make sure you guys receive the most important stimulus news, feel free to watch this entire video because there's a ton of headlines. For instance, Americans are eligible as long as they file their late 2019 or 2020 taxes by this September 2022 deadline. So we're talking about this, everybody. The handful of eligible taxpayers could see a boost to your bank account very, very soon. The IRS actually announced it will be refunding about $1 billion in tax filing penalties, meaning nearly a million people will automatically get a refund after filing certain 2019 or 2020 returns late. For instance, state Democrats this year opted to send $9.5 billion in direct checks for families. The refunds were the result of months of tense back and forth negotiations between Newsom and his administration. In just a matter of weeks, residents across Illinois will actually start receiving tax rebate checks. This week, the state will start distributing one-time income and property tax relief payments, which were included in the Family Relief Plan. That's a part of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's budget signed into law early this year. Now, the payments won't go out to everybody, as the distribution is expected to take an estimated 8 weeks. And first, to be eligible, you have to have filed your taxes already. So hopefully you guys did that in order to receive your stimulus check because that's how we're going to get stimulus. And the property tax rebate requires that recipients be Illinois residents who paid property taxes on their primary residence in 2021 and as well as 2022. So the adjusted gross income must be $500,000 or under if you're filing jointly or filing as a single person making $250,000 or less. As well as the number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits, that also fell last week to a 4-month low, even as the Federal Reserve continues its aggressive interest rate cuts to bring inflation under control. Still, applications for the jobless aid, everybody, or unemployment benefits is what we call it, has ended with 5,000 to 213,000 people applying for it since Thursday. That's the fewest since late May. Hiring in the United States in 2022 has been remarkably strong in the midst of rising interest rates and weak economic growth. So I hope that President Biden could do something about this and send out stimulus payments sooner than later because I know many of you guys need this help.
The issue of formula. We've done 3 things. I know Jen Psaki spoke to this today. Number 1, we're releasing guidance today to all the states of the possible flexibilities in the WIC program, the Women, Infant, Children program, because they're very sort of strict guidelines that when you walk in, if you have a WIC, you can go in and purchase a certain amount of formula, but you can't purchase more of it. The problem is the packaging issues are becoming a difficulty.
We have a lot of fourth stimulus check news, Social Security benefit news, and SSI and SSDI information that you have to know. So you want to continue watching this video to never miss out on the most important stimulus check information. According to the latest CNBC survey, fewer small business owners now than a year ago approved the president's job. In fact, right now, small business owners are twice as likely to disapprove of Biden than to approve him. Biden's approval rating among this group has not budged for the last 3 quarters, and few small business owners have been particularly focused on politics during that time. Instead, for a 3rd straight quarter, inflation dominates concerns. In the latest survey, about 4 in 10 small businesses report inflation to be the biggest risk to their business right now. And already, 3 in 4 small business owners say they are currently experiencing a rising cost in supplies, a number that has held steady since the 4th quarter of 2021. Among those experiencing increasing costs, 40% say they are having to increase their prices to keep up. Another 35% of people are planning to raise their prices if their cost continues to escalate. With inflation rising in every sector, small businesses may be the most reluctant to raise their own prices. This is because they lack some of the price-selling power that helps large corporations keep their dominance. Small business owners definitely cannot fight off inflation on their own. It is in the realm of the Federal Reserve and the Biden administration to determine policy changes that can curtail widespread increases. Chairman Jerome Powell announced the Fed would increase interest rates by half percentage point. This is the first such step taken since the recent inflation run began last year. Presidents get a strong credit for a strong economy in good times and get a blame for struggling economies during the bad time. With inflation top of the mind across the country, Biden's approval rating just won't recover unless he takes it on. Now, U.S. employers added 428,000 jobs in April, as the unemployment rate held steady at 3.6%. Stiff competition for workers is pushing up wages, and this is another concern for many economists and lawmakers. Employers are adding a lot of jobs, and wages are going up at a rapid pace, but those wage gains are just not keeping up with the high cost of living. And there's a danger that rising wages will make inflation even worse. The 2023 cost of living adjustment, everybody, or COLA, could be as high as 8.9%. It's possible it could climb up even higher than that, depending on what happens with inflation in the next few months. But many lawmakers are demanding for changes to be made for Social Security, at least for now. A federal benefit programs for blind, disabled, and elderly individuals could get a long overdue update if a proposal in Washington is approved. Two Ohio senators, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown and Republican Senator Rob Portman, have teamed up to introduce a bill this week called the Supplemental Security Income Program Rules to update the Supplemental Security Income Program's rules for how much beneficiaries can have set aside. Now, the senator's bill, also called the SSI Savings Penalty and Elimination Act, was introduced earlier this week. Now, SSI provides a monthly maximum benefit of $841 per individual or $1,200 for couples, where both individuals are eligible for the program. However, some beneficiaries receive far less. The average monthly benefit for all recipients is currently $625. Many people receiving these benefits are living under or close to the federal poverty level, which in 2022 is around $13,950. SSI also comes with strict rules regarding income and assets for beneficiaries. Brown and Portman's bill seeks to update the asset limits, which would actually enable beneficiaries to have more in savings in case of an emergency without affecting their benefits. The bill will also adjust thresholds annually for inflation based on consumer price index data, most likely. Much like Social Security benefits, the proposal follows a more expansive proposal put forth by Senator Brown last year titled the SSI Restoration Act. So folks, hopefully President Biden can get the job done this year, send out more stimulus checks, and increase the Social Security benefits. If you guys agree, tell me in the comments down below.
And so we've changed it so that the WIC program, you can buy what's on the shelf, so that we're not as it's the top issue raised with me. So the flexibility to have formula in stock should not depend on whether you have it packaged exactly what meets the requirement for that for people on the WIC program. Secondly, the FDA just issued a statement. We worked on it. I was on the telephone. And by the way, that on the WIC program, when I spoke to Walmart and I spoke to the major distributors for an hour or so, yesterday, the day before, I can't remember, they wanted to have this flexibility because they didn't want to be violating the law. Secondly, the top issue for retailers raised with me. Secondly, the FDA just issued a statement about importation of formula from abroad. The FDA has been looking at will be working with manufacturers to facilitate the incorporation of formulas from abroad that, in fact, in places like Europe, where we can get more product on U.S. shelves. That's underway. I think we're going to be in a matter of weeks or less getting significantly more formula on shelf. And the FDA is also going to ensure we can import and still maintain the high safety standards. And the third thing that is, there's more to say about each of these, but the third major thing we're doing is that
potentially raising the corporate tax rate to 25% and the capital gains rate tax to 28%. To pass the reconciliation bill, Schumer would actually need to keep his entire caucus together due to the evenly split margins in the Senate. It's unclear if centrist Democrat Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, who also played a big role in Build Back Better legislation, is open to the negotiations. Schumer has also said that today that President Biden is getting closer to canceling up to $50,000 in student loan debt for borrowers through executive action. During a speech on the Senate floor, Schumer said, "I'll keep urging the president to take this action, an important step. And I say to my colleagues, I think the president is moving in our direction." My talks with him and his staff have been getting very fruitful over the last little while, and I'm hopeful that we will do the right thing together. Now, the Biden administration extended the moratorium on federal student loan payments earlier this month, through the end of August. According to the Department of Education, a total of 43 million Americans owe a total of about $1.75 trillion in student loan debt. That's a number that has nearly doubled in the past decade. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party started pressuring Biden in the first weeks of his presidency to take executive action to cancel $50,000 in student loan debt, but President Biden shot down the proposal last year. With Schumer's optimism Wednesday, though, the president can move on his student debt ahead of the midterm elections this year. Jen Psaki actually told reporters the president has been considering and looking at options for how to provide more relief to students across the country. Meanwhile, Republicans have been united in their opposition to any student debt forgiveness. The GOP senators introduced an act that would actually end the suspension of repayments and prevent the president from canceling student debt. Senator Republican Mike Braun said in an official statement this week that the majority of Americans do not have college degrees, and this transfer of wealth is not a move to advance equity, but rather a taxpayer handout to appease activists. Folks, do you think President Biden is doing a good job